Story 1's My new apartment 3B felt like a fresh start. Charming, affordable, it promised a new beginning. I was so excited to move in. The old building had character with creaky floors and high ceilings. I envisioned years of peace here, a quiet sanctuary from the city. Unpacking boxes, I hummed. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, illuminating dust. This place felt perfect. I arranged furniture, making the small space my own. Every corner held potential. I was truly happy. My first night was peaceful, deep, contented sleep. The city's distant hum was soothing. I'd found my ideal home. Then a faint sound, barely a whisper. I dismissed it as old pipes or the wind, nothing to worry about. It returned the next night, a soft, repetitive melody. I strained to hear, but it vanished, leaving only silence. I blamed the building's age, its quirks. Old places make noises, just settling wood, creaking beams. But the tune was distinct, like a lullaby, incredibly faint. It pricked my subconscious, a fleeting thought. It became a nightly occurrence, always soft, always brief. I found myself listening, strange anticipation building. The melody seemed to emanate from the walls, a soft, mournful tune. I couldn't place it, but it was there. I tried to ignore it, but the persistent, gentle hum subtly irritated me. It was always there. This happened to me. The lullaby, a ghost of a sound, was insidiously becoming part of my nights. The lullaby grew more frequent, a subtle increase in volume. No longer a whisper, it was a persistent hum. It seemed to come from my bedroom wall. I'd press my ear against it, trying to pinpoint the source. I tapped on the wall, listened for neighbors. Nothing, just the faint, repeating melody. My frustration mounted. I asked neighbors about strange sounds. They claimed perfect silence. Was I imagining it? The thought chilled me. The melody was clear now, though still soft. I started sleeping with earplugs, but the lullaby seemed to bypass them, vibrating into my mind. This was my reality, the constant, soft melody from the walls, making my home less a sanctuary. The tune felt mournful, a sorrowful echo in the quiet. It began to affect my mood. I paced, trying to locate a vent, a pipe, anything to explain the sound. Nothing. The lack of explanation was more terrifying than the sound. It defied logic, chipping away at my composure. Sleep deprivation became constant, my eyes heavy, thoughts foggy. The lullaby stole my rest. Mounting anxiety tightened its grip. Shadows deepened, creaks amplified. I was on edge. The lullaby's mournful tune felt personal, sung directly to me, a chilling serenade. Cold spots appeared, sudden drops in temperature, even with heating. They accompanied the melody. A pervasive sense of being watched settled. I'd spin around, finding only empty space. I left lights on, unable to bear the oppressive darkness. My charming apartment felt menacing. Paranoia became my shadow. I checked locks, peered through the peephole, convinced of a presence. My own reflection startled me. I looked haggard, eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. The tune was now a constant hum in my waking hours, a phantom echo. I couldn't escape it. Desperate for answers, I turned to the building's history, old archives, online forums. I spent hours researching, fueled by caffeine and dread. I needed to understand. Then I found it, an old newspaper clipping, yellowed and fragile, a tragedy. A young child's Lily had vanished from apartment 3B, my apartment. Her disappearance was never solved. She simply vanished, leaving questions. The chilling realization hit me. The lullaby, it had to be connected to Lily. This happened to me. I was living in a haunted space, replaying a child's last moments. The lullaby intensified, no longer faint. It was clear, distinct, a pleading melody. It pulled me towards a specific bedroom wall. A profound, sorrowful presence emanated. My hand instinctively touched the cold plaster. I felt a surge of overwhelming grief, not my own. The melody filled the room, no longer just from walls, but all around me, heart-wrenching. I closed my eyes, overwhelmed. I was no longer alone, something ancient and sad was with me. Then a terrifying, lucid vision. A small room, dimly lit, shadows, a child's toy. Lily, her small hand reaching, eyes wide with fear, a dark shape, her final moments. And the source, a spectral woman kneeling, singing to the empty space where Lily was. Her mother's spirit trapped in a perpetual lullaby, an eternal echo of grief. I'll never forget that night. I scrambled out, grabbing only keys, the lullaby screaming. I never returned, but the lullaby, that mournful melody, is forever etched. Some songs never end. Story 2, this happened to me. I moved into Unit 3A, excited for a fresh start. The complex seemed peaceful. My new home was perfect, overlooking a park. I spent days making it my own. Everything felt right, a sanctuary. Directly across was Unit 3B, its door always closed. I figured a quiet, reclusive neighbor lived there, no big deal. I occasionally saw an older man, Mr. Sila's, gaunt, unsettling eyes. He never spoke, just nodded. A strange man indeed. Weeks in, a faint, unusual smell wafted into my apartment. I dismissed it as old building issues, plumbing perhaps. It was subtle, earthy, and sweet. I opened windows, but it lingered. A persistent, unsettling presence in the air. Maybe Mr. Sila's was cooking exotic meals. I tried to rationalize. My imagination was running wild, trying to explain. The smell returned, stronger, acrid, metallic. It clung, making me wrinkle my nose. From 3B, a chill began. Old building, dead animal, I told myself. Anything but sinister. I needed to believe a logical explanation. But unease tightened. This wasn't normal. The smell was wrong. A primal dread whispered warnings. The smell truly intensified, acrid like burnt chemicals in something organic. It burned my nostrils, eyes watering. A distinct metallic undertone emerged, like old blood. It was cloying, sickly, crawling under my skin. Worst, a sickly sweet note joined the horrid symphony. Decay poorly masked, it was sickening, unforgettable. Late one night, faint scraping began, metal on hard, rhythmic. I sat bolt upright, heart pounding. Then a low grinding like machinery, always after midnight, persistent, invading my peace. I couldn't ignore it. Muffled thuds followed, heavy, irregular. They echoed through the floor. What was Mr. Sila's doing next door? My sleep fragmented, haunted by sounds and smells. I'd wake in a cold sweat, convinced something terrible. I'd check the clock, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., always dead of night. It felt deliberate, his work beginning when the world slept. The anxiety was a physical weight. My sanctuary became a cage, its bars the walls separating me from 3B. No denying it, every foul aroma, every sound emanated from Mr. Silas's apartment. My blood ran cold. Ignoring disturbances failed, my peace shattered. I couldn't relax. The apartment felt tainted, no longer home. Sleep deprivation became constant. My eyes heavy, thoughts foggy, perpetually on edge, jumpy at every creak. I noticed Mr. Sila's more, his furtive behavior, always quick, head down. He shrank from observation. He often carried a large, worn duffel bag, heavy, misshapen, sometimes leaving a faint, familiar odor. What was it? Late-night deliveries started, a nondescript white van always after midnight. My suspicions grew. Heavy, nondescript boxes were unloaded, sometimes stained. Mr. Sila's exchanged hushed words, dragged them inside. He struggled with the weight, not furniture, not groceries. What could be so heavy, so irregular? Sometimes I felt his eyes on me, a quick, unsettling glance from his doorway, a silent acknowledgement. I had to act. I knocked on his door, rehearsing polite inquiries. My heart pounded against my ribs. Mr. Sila's opened it a crack, his eyes cold. He mumbled old building smells and slammed the door, dismissive. Frustrated, I called management. I explained the smells, sounds, deliveries. I hoped for action. They gave vague dismissals, old pipes, eccentric residents. They promised to look, but I heard skepticism. I felt isolated, unheard, my concerns dismissed, fears trivialized. It was just me against Mr. Silas. Dread settled. What if no one believed me? What if I was alone facing horrors next door? Then a building-wide power outage, absolute darkness, silence, only my pounding heart, terrifying. But a faint, flickering light from under Mr. Silas's door, a generator, it defied the blackout, unnatural. An overpowering stench, worse than ever, assaulted me. Thick, suffocating decay, it compelled me forward. His door was slightly ajar, just a hair. Flickering light, unbearable smell pulled me. Instinct screamed to run. I peered in, my breath hitched. A large, tarp-covered object dominated his living room. What was beneath? Beside it, strange tools, gleaming blades, saws, a bone cutter, industrial, menacing, out of place. My blood ran cold. The unbearable smell combined with a distinct, sickening, squelching sound. Wet, organic, horrifying, bile rose. Against my judgment, I forced myself to peek again. Curiosity was a cruel master, dragging me to the abyss. His apartment was no home. It was a gruesome workshop, bathed in sickly lamp glow. My blood froze. Mr. Silas meticulously processed what looked like animal remains, but the scale, too large for any animal. The tools, the cuts, the material, it screamed human. My mind reeled, denying what my eyes witnessed. The ingredients weren't just meat, they were recognizable. Fingers, a jawbone, my stomach churned, horror. Suddenly Mr. Silas froze. He sensed me. His head snapped, his eyes locked on mine, pure terror. His gaze pierced me. I fled silently, desperately, back to my apartment. His eyes, smell, sounds burned into my soul. Trapped. Police called, investigation. Mr. Silas arrested. Horrors exposed, confirming my worst, gruesome fears. I moved out, but phantom smells, chilling sounds, his eyes still haunt me. Darkness lurks beyond thin walls. This happened to me. Story 3. I'd been the superintendent of the Harrington Arms for 15 years. The communal laundry room was my domain, a place of mundane routine. This happened to me. Then the anomalies began. It started subtly, almost imperceptibly. I remember the first time, a tenant complaining about a missing sock, just a sock. Days later, that sock reappeared. It wasn't theirs. It had a faint, reddish smudge I couldn't explain. I brushed it off, a simple mix-up, but the feeling lingered. Next, Mrs. Henderson's favorite silk scarf vanished. A week later, it turned up, neatly folded, but it bore an impossible, deep, blood-like stain that wouldn't wash out. Along its hem, a few crude, dark stitches appeared. They weren't there before. A cold dread started to settle in my gut. This wasn't a mix-up. The next incident was truly chilling. A forgotten pillowcase from a vacant apartment reappeared in a dryer. This really happened to me. Crudely stitched into its faded fabric were the words, "Where is Lillian?" My heart pounded. Who was Lillian? Why was her name here? My research into old building records unearthed a forgotten disappearance from decades ago, a young woman named Lillian. The name sent shivers down my spine. I started to feel watched in that laundry room, faint whispers or the machines whirring when they should have been silent. It was a constant, unsettling presence. Sometimes I'd catch a fleeting, distorted reflection in the chrome of a machine door. A face, pale and undefined, gone in an instant. I questioned my own sanity. The air in the laundry room grew colder, even in summer. A pervasive chill that felt unnatural, creeping under my skin. I couldn't shake it. I found myself spending more and more time there, obsessively searching. I felt compelled, drawn to the mystery the machines seemed to be weaving. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. Paranoia gnawed at me. Every creak, every shadow felt like a message from the laundry room. Tenants started noticing my odd behavior. Whispers followed me. The super's not himself, I heard. They felt the unease, too, though they couldn't articulate it. Minor incidents became more frequent. Laundry detergent bottles would move overnight. Lights flickered erratically despite my repairs. The machines were alive. I researched other disappearances in the building's history. There were more, unexplained absences, hushed up, forgotten. The laundry room was a vault of secrets. Sometimes I'd find strange threads caught in the lint traps. Not cotton, not polyester, something else, something organic. I'll never forget that. One morning, a tenant's sweater reappeared with a small, intricately embroidered symbol. It looked ancient, almost tribal. It wasn't there before. I tried to decipher it, comparing it to old texts, folklore, nothing. But I knew it was a message meant for someone, perhaps for me. The machines seemed to hum with a different cadence now. A low, rhythmic thrumming that pulsed with an almost predatory energy. It was unsettling. One night, I saw a child's tiny handprint smudged in something dark on the inside of a dryer door. It was gone by morning. The smell in the laundry room shifted, from detergent and fabric softener to something metallic, earthy, like old soil and rust. I couldn't place it. I started leaving small offerings, a shiny coin on a machine, a fresh flower, a desperate, irrational attempt to appease whatever was lurking there. The machines responded with silence, a heavy, expectant silence. They were watching my every move, I was certain, waiting. My reflection in the chrome became clearer, not just a distorted face, but a gaunt, terrified version of myself, eyes wide with fear. I barely recognized me. One night alone, I found a child's small, stained toy in a dryer. It was an old wooden doll, its painted face chipped and worn. Sewn onto it was a single, tiny, red button, a familiar button. My breath hitched. I knew it. I recognized it from an old photo of Lillian. The machines weren't just processing clothes, they were collecting, altering, remembering. They were weaving a story, a dark tapestry of the lost. I started talking to them, whispering into the empty drums, demanding answers. "What do you want?" I'd plead, my voice raw with desperation. The machines responded with a low, rumbling vibration, a guttural growl that resonated through the concrete floor, shaking me to my core. The reflections became terrifyingly clear. A pale, emaciated face, eyes wide with terror, staring directly at me, trapped within the chrome. I knew then what I had to do. I had to confront it directly. I had to dare the machines. This was my moment of truth. I loaded my own work glove into a machine, a worn leather glove stained with years of oil and grime, a piece of myself. The machine whirred to life on its own. No coins, no settings, just a low, ominous groan as the drum began to spin slowly, deliberately. I waited, heart pounding. The cycle seemed endless. Each rotation felt like a tick of a monstrous clock counting down to something terrible. Finally, it stopped. The whirring ceased. A heavy silence descended, broken only by my ragged breathing. The moment of reckoning had arrived. I reached for the dryer door, my hand shaking. I pulled it open. My glove was gone, vanished. I expected it, yet it still shocked me. Instead, a piece of old, yellowed fabric lay there. It looked ancient, brittle, like a fragment from a forgotten shroud. Stitched into it in dark, reddish thread were two words. I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach as I read them. "You're next." The words burned into my vision. A fresh, dark stain blossomed on the fabric, spreading outwards like spilled ink. In the now glowing drum, I saw it clearly. Not a reflection, but a presence. A distorted, pale face, its eyes wide and vacant. It stared back at me, Lillian, or something else entirely. Its gaze was empty, yet filled with an ancient, unbearable sorrow. I fled the laundry room that night. I ran, stumbling up the stairs, the image of that face seared into my mind. I'll never forget that night. The dread never left me. It clung to me like a shroud, a constant, chilling companion. The laundry room had claimed a piece of my soul. I tried to quit to escape the Harrington arms, but something held me here, a strange, invisible tether. I was bound to this place. Now I still hear the faint hum of the machines, a low, rhythmic thrumming that echoes in my apartment even when they are off. And sometimes I find a single, strange thread on my own clothes, not from my laundry, a dark, coarse fiber always out of place. Or a faint, reddish smudge on my collar, my sleeve, small, impossible marks that won't wash out, proof of my connection. A constant, chilling reminder that I am now part of the laundry's secret. I am one of its threads woven into its dark tapestry. And it's waiting for my turn. The Harrington Arms laundry room has secrets, and I am its next story. This is my truth. Story 4: New parenthood in our high-rise apartment brought joy and exhaustion. Lily was everything. I often gazed out our window, finding a moment of peace. Our apartment offered stunning city views, the adjacent building a familiar backdrop. I'd occasionally glance across, noticing the ordinary lives unfolding in other windows. One evening, rocking Lily, my eyes drifted. That's when I first saw it, a dark, static figure in a window across the way, several floors up. It was just a silhouette, barely visible against the twilight. I dismissed it quickly, thinking it was a mannequin or some odd decorative piece. The thought was fleeting, lost in the demands of new motherhood. Diapers, feedings, endless cuddles. My world revolved around Lily. But days turned into a week. Each time I looked, the figure was there, always in the same window, always facing our unit. It began to prickle at me. It never moved, not a twitch, not a shift. Even with changing light, it maintained its rigid posture. This struck me as increasingly unusual. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a statue, an art installation, but the feeling of being watched, of being observed, started to creep in. This happened to me. The window it occupied was directly opposite Lily's nursery. A chilling coincidence or something more sinister? My mind raced. I found myself checking, first casually, then with growing intent. Each time it was there, a silent sentinel always facing us. Sleep became elusive. Every creak, every shadow amplified my unease. My exhaustion was no longer just from Lily, but from a persistent dread. I started positioning myself to see it from different angles, hoping to break the illusion, but the figure remained resolute, a dark void against the glass. My gaze would instinctively snap to that window. It felt like an invisible tether pulling my attention, demanding I acknowledge its unchanging presence. The feeling wasn't just unsettling, it was becoming a tangible weight, a constant pressure, as if unseen eyes were boring into our apartment. I tried to dismiss it as new parent paranoia, a symptom of sleep deprivation, but deep down, a cold knot of fear had begun to form. The figure was always there, morning, noon, or deepest night. It was an immutable fixture, a permanent stain on the cityscape outside our window. Its silent vigil seemed specifically directed at Lily's nursery. I imagined its unseen gaze piercing through the walls directly into her crib. I began to pull the nursery blinds down, even during the day. A futile attempt, I knew, but it offered a momentary illusion of protection. The feeling of being watched was relentless. It seeped into my dreams, turning them into anxious, shadowy landscapes where I was always pursued. Mark, my husband, noticed my growing preoccupation. Still thinking about that mannequin, he'd ask, a gentle teasing tone in his voice. He couldn't see it, or rather, he saw a static object, not the malevolent presence I felt. His dismissal deepened my isolation. I started to question my own sanity. Was sleep deprivation finally breaking me? Was this just terrifying new parent anxiety? But the certainty, the cold conviction that something was wrong, never wavered. My gut screamed at me, overriding all logic. I'd stand at the window, staring back, trying to provoke a reaction, anything to confirm it was human or at least explainable. It remained unmoving, a silent, dark void, but I swore sometimes the darkness within it seemed to deepen, to become more absolute. Then came the subtle shifts. The first time I thought I imagined it, a fractional tilt of its head, barely perceptible. My breath hitched, I blinked, rubbed my eyes. Had it moved, or was my exhausted mind finally breaking? It seemed infinitesimally closer to the glass, a microscopic inch, perhaps, a detail only I, in my obsessive vigilance, would notice. The shifts were so small, so gradual, they felt designed to gaslight me, to make me doubt my own perception, my own sanity. A slight change in its shoulder line, a subtle alteration in the angle of its arm, now seeming to rest more heavily on the sill. I started marking the window frame with tiny, almost invisible pencil marks, trying to track its position. My secret, desperate experiment. The marks confirmed it. It was shifting. Slowly, imperceptibly, it was moving, always closer, always towards us. A cold dread settled deeper within me. This wasn't a mannequin. It was something alive, something aware. My partner, Mark, remained oblivious. He'd glance, see nothing, and reassure me. His calm only amplified my terror. I felt utterly alone, trapped in this terrifying secret. My fear for Lily grew exponentially. I tried to explain again, sketching what I saw. It's subtle, Mark, but it's moving. He just shook his head. "Honey, you're exhausted," he'd say gently, pulling me into a hug. "It's just the stress of everything." His logical explanations felt like a betrayal. He couldn't understand the insidious horror I was experiencing. I started barricading Lily's crib at night, pushing it against the farthest wall, away from the window. A desperate, irrational act. The isolation was crushing. It was me against the watcher, and I was losing. My sanity felt like it was fraying at the edges. One moonlit night, soothing Lily, I glanced up. The figure was unmistakably, profoundly different. It had shifted. It was closer to the glass than ever, and from the depths of its dark form, 2 points of light emerged. Eyes. Ancient, malevolent, and undeniably fixed on my child. A predatory gaze that chilled me to the bone. This was no decoration. It was an entity, an unnatural, ancient presence with a sinister, hungry interest in my newborn daughter. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just watching, it wanted something, and it was coming for Lily. Its subtle movements intensified, a slow, deliberate raising of a gnarled hand pressing against the glass. Then the hint of a grotesque, ancient smile, a silent, malevolent acknowledgement that it saw me, knew I knew. My scream was primal, tearing through the quiet apartment, pure, unadulterated terror. I'll never forget that night. I yanked every curtain shut, every blind pulled tight. Mark, finally seeing my utter breakdown, didn't question. We packed. We left that night, abandoning everything. But the image of those eyes, that smile, is burned into my soul. The feeling of being watched never truly leaves. It's still out there. Story 5. I, Alex, found this charming, impossibly affordable apartment online. It felt like a fresh start in a new city, a blank canvas. The landlord was eager, the paperwork piled high, and I, too excited, barely glanced at the dense contract before signing. The place had character, old wooden floors, high ceilings, a sense of history. It was everything I'd dreamed of. The move-in was smooth, the neighbors quiet, and the rent truly was a steal. I settled in, oblivious to the hidden cost. Weeks turned into months, and I thrived. My new job was fulfilling, my social life blossomed. The apartment felt like a sanctuary, a true home. I never once thought about that mountain of paperwork, happily ignoring what lay within its archaic clauses. Then came the promotion, an incredible opportunity in another state. My heart soared. It meant leaving this apartment, but the excitement overshadowed any sentimental pangs. I decided to give my notice, eager for the next chapter. I pulled out the lease, tucked away in a drawer, ready to find the landlord's contact. It was thicker than I remembered, the paper feeling oddly brittle, almost ancient. A faint, earthy smell wafted from its pages. The contact information was scrawled on the last page. I dialed the number, expecting a professional answering machine. Instead, a static-filled message played, then an abrupt disconnect. I tried again, same result, disconnected. I searched online for the property management company listed on the lease. Nothing. No website, no other numbers, no trace. It was as if they never existed, a phantom entity. A flicker of unease began to stir. Reluctantly, I started reading the lease. The language was archaic, convoluted, filled with legal jargon I couldn't comprehend. My eyes scanned for the move-out clauses, but they seemed purposefully obscured. Then I found it, a section titled Covenant of Perpetual Occupancy. My breath hitched. It stated the lease was a living bond, binding the tenant to the domicile for the natural duration of their earthly tenure. I laughed, a nervous, disbelieving sound. This had to be a joke, some bizarre, old-fashioned legal prank. No modern lease could possibly contain such absurdity. I tried to reassure myself, but the words echoed ominously. The next clause mentioned irreversible tenancy and a proprietary claim. It described the apartment as a sentient entity capable of grief and restitution. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a joke. I needed professional help. This was beyond my understanding, a legal labyrinth designed to ensnare. I contacted a lawyer, Mr. Henderson, hoping he could untangle this nightmare. He promised to look into it. Days later, Henderson called back, his voice strained. "Alex, I've never seen anything like it. This lease, it's impossible to break. There are obscure legal precedents, centuries old, supporting its validity." He spoke of restitution for structural grief, astronomical fees that would bankrupt generations. It was an unpayable debt, a financial prison. "You're legally trapped," he concluded, his voice heavy with resignation. The reality hit me like a physical blow, trapped in my own apartment. The walls seemed to press in, the air growing heavy. This wasn't just bureaucracy, it was existential horror. My fresh start had become an eternal end. Despite the lawyer's grim pronouncement, I refused to give up. I started packing, determined to leave. I bought new boxes, tape, markers, ready to dismantle my life here, piece by piece. But packing became impossible. I'd fill a box with books, seal it, and turn my back. Moments later, it would be empty, the books scattered across the floor, the tape neatly removed. My packed clothes reappeared in my closet, neatly folded, as if mocking my efforts. It was like an invisible force was undoing my work, meticulously putting everything back in its place. Frustration turned to fury. I tried again, faster, more aggressively, but the apartment was relentless. My packed kitchenware was back in the cabinets, sparkling clean, untouched by my hands. Then came the physical barriers. The front door, usually easy to open, suddenly jammed. I twisted the knob, pushed, pulled, but it wouldn't budge. It was like it had been welded shut overnight. The windows, too, were sealed. I tried to pry one open, but the frame felt solid, unyielding, as if it were part of the wall itself. No fresh air, no escape route. The apartment was a cage. A growing sense of panic tightened its grip. This wasn't just bad luck or a faulty building. This was deliberate. The apartment was actively resisting my departure, asserting its ancient, proprietary claim. My car keys, essential for any escape, started vanishing. I'd place them on the counter, only to find them gone minutes later, sometimes reappearing in the most absurd places, like inside a cereal box. My phone charger frayed mysteriously, then stopped working entirely. My laptop's battery drained at an alarming rate, even when plugged in. Communication with the outside world became a struggle. One morning, I awoke to a gushing sound. A pipe in the bathroom had burst, flooding the room, ruining several packed boxes I had managed to fill. It felt like a targeted attack, a cruel accident. The apartment was playing a twisted game, using every trick to keep me. Each obstacle was a reminder of the lease's power, a taunt from a silent, unseen entity. I started feeling truly alone. Then the whispers began, soft, disembodied murmurs just at the edge of hearing. They seemed to emanate from the walls, from the very air, too faint to distinguish words but undeniably present. Fleeting shadows danced in my peripheral vision. I'd turn quickly, but nothing would be there, just empty space mocking my paranoia. The apartment was playing with my mind. A constant, unsettling feeling of being watched settled over me. I felt eyes on my back, even when alone. Every creak of the old building became a knowing sigh, every draft a cold breath. My reflection started to change. I'd glance in the mirror, and for a split second, my eyes would seem darker, older, staring back with a strange, possessive intensity that wasn't my own. I tried to call my sister, desperate for a comforting voice. The line connected, but when I started to explain about the apartment, a harsh static erupted, then silence. The call dropped. My parents, my closest friends, anyone I tried to reach to talk about my predicament, their calls mysteriously cut off or went unanswered. The apartment was severing my ties, isolating me. The outside world began to feel distant, unreal. The apartment was all that mattered, all that existed. Its walls seemed to hum with a low, oppressive energy, feeding on my despair. Days blurred into weeks. I stopped trying to pack. I stopped trying to call. The will to fight was slowly draining from me, replaced by a creeping acceptance of my fate. The apartment was winning. One evening, a desperate spark ignited. I would not surrender. With newfound resolve, I grabbed my emergency bag, determined to force my way out no matter the cost. This was my last stand. I threw my shoulder against the front door, summoning every ounce of strength. It shuddered, groaned, but held firm. It was mocking me, its timber feeling impossibly dense, like ancient stone. Suddenly, the air grew thick and heavy. A low, resonant hum vibrated through the floorboards, rising into a deep, guttural growl that seemed to emanate from the very foundations of the building. Then a voice, not a whisper, but a booming, ancient voice, echoing from the walls, from the ceiling, from everywhere at once. It spoke directly into my mind, chilling me to the bone. "You belong to me," it rumbled, the words vibrating through my very being. "The lease is a living bond, sealed with your desire for a fresh start. You are mine, Alex, forever." Physical barriers slammed into place. Heavy, unseen forces pushed furniture against the door, barricading my exit completely. The windows glowed with an internal, dark light, sealing them shut permanently. I fell to my knees, defeated. The apartment had won. Its ancient, sentient claim was absolute. The unbreakable lease was not merely a contract, it was a living, breathing entity, and I was its captive. My struggle faded. The fight left me, replaced by a profound, chilling calm. The apartment's will became my will. Its proprietary desires became my own, twisting my mind, making me accept my fate. I stopped seeing the walls as barriers, but as protectors. The isolation wasn't loneliness, but perfect companionship. The whispers became lullabies, the shadows comforting presences. I was home. My reflection in the mirror now held only the apartment's possessive gaze, its ancient eyes staring out. My identity slowly blurred, merging with the very fabric of the building. I live here now, a permanent fixture, another forgotten resident bound by the unbreakable lease. My physical form remains, but my essence, my will, belongs entirely to the apartment. Sometimes I hear new tenants viewing apartments in the building. I hear their hopeful laughter, their plans for a fresh start. They don't know the true cost of affordable rent. I feel a strange, cold satisfaction as they sign their leases, binding themselves to this place. Soon, they will understand the meaning of perpetual occupancy. They will learn the apartment's hunger. The whispers of new residents will join mine, adding to the apartment's chorus. We will become one, a collective consciousness of the trapped, forever bound to these walls. The building breathes, it hungers, and it collects. It will never let go. This isn't just a building, it's a living tomb, and I am merely one of its many eternal inhabitants. So, if you ever find an impossibly cheap apartment with an unusually dense lease, scrutinize every word, because some leases aren't just contracts, they are eternal chains, and I'm still here.